Chapter 1. The dust of slaves and sons whispers from a forgotten holocron. Deep in the catacombs of Malachor, beneath black stone and fractured stars, ... the sand does not forget. It drinks blood, swallows bones, erases names. And beneath, twin suns that never rest, the sand watches. It watched him, a child, born not with ceremony nor prophecy, born to a woman whose name the galaxy would never learn, save those who whispered of her in regret and ash. Born into chains, not destiny, yet the force it stirred. They called him Anakin, a name not yet legend. Small hands building droids from scrap, fixing pods with cuts on his fingers, racing not for glory but survival. A boy who dreamed of the sky but belonged to the dirt. Watto owned him. A Toydarian merchant whose heart was weighed in credits and greed, not compassion. And Shmi, the boy's mother, weary, kind, quiet, bore her chains with grace. But Anakin's gaze reached farther. He would look into the distance, into the dunes that shimmered like ghost fires, and feel called by something older than Tatooine, older than suns. The Jedi had forgotten Tatooine, the Republic too distant. Here, the Force twisted in silence. Here, destiny festered in sandstorms, and in the shadows of Mos Espa there were rumors of how the boy could hear things before they were said, of how machines obeyed him, of how he had no father. None believed it, not truly, but the Force did not need belief. It only needed time. Each night, the stars whispered to Anakin in his sleep. He dreamed of light he did not understand, of ships that crossed galaxies, of duels in fire, of robes and war and love. Sometimes he would wake with tears on his face, weeping for names he did not know. Leia, Padma, Luke. But when the suns rose again, all that remained was heat and hunger and dust. One day he would build a pod that should not fly, and he would make it soar. One day he would save a Jedi from death, and the Jedi would look at him not as a child, but as a tremor in the Force. One day the temple would burn in his name, but for now he was only a boy with oil-stained fingers, dreaming of stars and the Force. Watched, it is said that the Force surrounds all things. It binds the galaxy together. But what is forgotten is that the Force remembers, and the memory of this child, this slave, would one day drown the stars in fire. The signs were all there. He built with hands too young. He knew languages he had never been taught. He moved too quickly. And when he raced across the sands, it was not instinct, it was will. Even the padraises, those death traps of speed and flame, bowed to him. Other pilots perished. He endured, because the Force would not let him die. Not yet. And when Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn arrived, it was not coincidence. The Force does not deal in chance. Qui-Gon saw a boy, bright, bold, reckless, but the Force saw a fracture, a fulcrum, a future. The prophecy had spoken of balance. Qui-Gon believed this child to be its fulfillment. But prophecy is a dangerous mirror. It shows not truth, but possibility, and no mirror shows what lies behind the eyes. Shmi said simply, he was conceived by the midi-chlorians, no father, only life from the Force itself. The Jedi would recoil, but they had already forgotten the old ways, forgotten the truths buried beneath their polished stones in council seats. For Anakin Skywalker was not a gift. He was a reckoning, a storm wrapped in flesh, a tear in the weave of fate. On the eve of his freedom, the winds howled, a sandstorm unlike any other, as if the planet itself grieved. He left his mother behind, tears falling like rain that Tatooine would never see. She smiled. She knew, not what he would become, but that she would never hold him again, and the boy walked away from her. Stars he could not name, into the hands of Jedi, into the arms of war, into the mouth of destiny. Above him, the stars pulsed with foreboding light. The Force murmured, and deep within it, something stirred. Something old, something dark, something patient. Anakin Skywalker had taken his first step off the sand, and the galaxy began to shift, to be born a slave, to dream of stars. To be chosen by the Force itself is to be cursed. The prophecy had begun, but its end was still hidden. Chapter 2: The Whispering Thread of Destiny. The Force speaks not in words, but in echoes. In the quiet shadow of Naboo's triumph, the child was taken from sand into stone. Coruscant, tower of towers, a city without sky. He stood there, small, calloused feet against polished marble, the air too clean, the silence too loud. Here, the Jedi Temple stretched like a monument to order, but beneath its surface, the currents of fate began to ripple. The boy walked among giants in robes. He was brought before the council, the elders of the old order, Yoda, Mace Windu, Ki-Adi-Mundi. Their eyes, wise and clouded, searched him not for innocence, but for threat. They sensed his power, yes, it sang through him like a storm, held at bay. But behind their stillness, they were afraid. And so the boy stood, alone. He missed his mother. The Force, too, missed something it could no longer name. Qui-Gon Jinn, the maverick, had seen through the veil. He alone dared speak of ancient prophecy. A virgins in the Force centered around this boy. They did not listen. Prophecy had grown forbidden, not by law, but by fear. The words, buried in age-worn scrolls, whispered of one who would bring balance, the chosen one. But what is balance? To the Jedi light triumphant, to the Sith darkness absolute, to the Force, balance is a knife's edge between both, and the edge cuts deeply. They tested the boy. He saw visions, he dreamed truths, but when asked of fear, he answered too quickly, "I'm afraid to lose her." And in that moment, they knew he was not ready, yet fate pressed forward. Qui-Gon died on Naboo, cut down by the blade of Darth Maul, a phantom of the old Sith, stirring again. With his last breath, Qui-Gon's will pass to Obi-Wan. The boy must be trained. It was not belief, it was command. Obi-Wan obeyed, not out of certainty, but duty. He took the boy as his Padawan. Thus, the Jedi inherited a storm they did not understand. A child of 9, gifted beyond comprehension, broken by loss, forged by war before his soul had even healed. They gave him robes, a braid, a saber, but they did not give him peace. The boy smiled. He obeyed, but the Force writhed within him. He meditated, but beneath his breath he whispered her name. Mother and the Force listened. Sometimes, when Anakin touched the crystal at the heart of his lightsaber, it pulsed in strange rhythms. Visions would come unbidden. A city burning, a woman screaming, a cloaked figure laughing in shadow. A voice soft and poisonous, promising that death was not the end, if one only had the will to prevent it. But he said nothing. Obi-Wan, his teacher, was patient, disciplined, but he could not be a father. He could not see what grew beneath Anakin's calm, doubt, yearning, and fear. The council watched from afar, They praised his talents, but withheld trust. They spoke of caution, not guidance. And the boy, desperate to belong, instead felt the sting of otherness. The Force continued to whisper to him. He would rise. He would fall. He would burn worlds and shatter time. He would kill friends and redeem blood. But none of that was yet written. What was written was this. The boy was not placed in the temple by chance. The dark side had already begun to reach. For him, not with violence, but with understanding, Palpatine, Supreme Chancellor, kindly mask of a deeper rot, took notice. He spoke to Anakin, not as a Jedi, but as a person. He asked of his dreams. He listened to his doubts. And in the boy's loneliness, that attention became gravity. A bond began to form. Not yet sinister, not yet revealed, but rooted, deep. Years would pass, and that root would grow into a tree of fire. But here, in these early days, the whispers were soft, dreams, visions, questions. The boy would lie awake beneath temple, stone, and wonder, if the Force made me. Why am I so afraid? He would train, he would excel, but his heart remained split between the past he could not let go, and a future no one truly offered him in secret. The Force mourned, for even now its balance began to tip. The boy was becoming a blade, and soon someone would wield him, but not yet. The sands of Tatooine still clung to his thoughts. The stars still sang his name, and in the core of the galaxy, a Sith Lord watched and smiled. To fear loss is human, to prevent it at all costs. That is the beginning of something darker. The prophecy was in motion, but none could see its cost. Chapter 3 Echoes in the crystal. Within the temple's hollow silence, the crystals spoke. But not all who listened were prepared for what they heard. In the heart of the Jedi Temple, beneath stone etched with forgotten languages, there lay the crystal vault, a chamber of cold breath and flickering light. Here the young came to be chosen, not by masters, not by prophecy, but by the Kyber. For every Jedi must build their own blade, but the blade is not forged with fire. It is shaped with intention and soul. And the crystal, that living remnant of a Force once wild and pure, listens. Anakin entered alone. He was older than most initiates who walked these halls. The keepers watched him closely, but the boy walked as if pulled by something unseen. Not curiosity, not reverence, something deeper. Recognition. He moved past rows of sleeping shards, past humming stones that once sang to children of the old Republic. Then he stopped, before one that glowed faintly, then flared. The crystal chose him. It pulsed in his palm like a heart outside a body. And in that beat, the Force whispered, visions came, of twin sabers clashing in fire, of robes turning to ash, of Padme's face, eyes wide with betrayal, of the sound of a child calling him father, and through it all, a voice ancient and smooth as oil. What will you become, Anakin Skywalker? He gasped. The vision faded. The crystal dimmed. He emerged from the chamber, hands shaking. No one asked what he saw. The Order did not speak of visions. Such things were inconvenient. Obi-Wan guided him in constructing the hilt, meticulously, with quiet pride. The bond between them, once strained, began to warm, but never burned brightly. Obi-Wan loved Anakin, but never knew how to say it. Anakin admired Obi-Wan, but hungered for something more. A father, a friend, an equal, none of which the Jedi encouraged. When the saber was complete, Anakin ignited it. Blue fire roared to life, sharp, steady, resolute, a Jedi's blade. But the crystal remembered the vision, and deep within its core, it remained uncertain. He trained fiercely. His skill bloomed with unnatural speed. His name spread among the temple, the prodigy, the future. But there were whispers. He disarmed opponents too quickly. He struck with too much force. He broke forms and reshaped them. He dreamed of combat, not peace. The Jedi spoke of patience. He practiced speed. They praised serenity. He fed on passion, quiet, unspoken, but ever present, and sometimes in the stillness of the training halls. He would ignite his saber just to listen to its hum, not out of discipline, but to remind himself he could protect those he loved. He could defend what mattered. He could shape fate if only he was strong enough. And always the question returned, what will you become? Years passed in the temple like water through stone. Anakin grew, his braid lengthened, his stance sharpened, but he began to feel the cage, not one of walls, but of doctrine. He asked why attachment was forbidden. They answered with riddles. He asked what balance meant. They offered metaphors. He asked what the dark side truly was. They warned him not to ask. And so, in the silence, he listened elsewhere, in the archives, among sealed scrolls, in the vaults of old holocrons. And once, deep beneath the temple itself, he found a hidden door, sealed long ago. The chamber inside was cold. Dust lay thick. Statues stood, not of Jedi, but of warriors, who looked upon the galaxy with sorrow, not hope. And there, flickering in the corner, was a crystal, red, dormant, dead. Or so it seemed. When Anakin reached for it, his saber vibrated violently. He stepped back. The room pulsed once, and again. The voice came, softer now, as if through water. There is no fear in power, only clarity. He fled the chamber, told no one, but from that day forward, his saber's crystal sang a little louder. And sometimes, when alone, he would place the hilt in his lap, and just listen, not to the hum, but to the echo beneath it. The council praised his development, but Yoda watched him with caution. Much fear in him still. The old master would say. Obi-Wan disagreed. He's maturing. But the temple walls began to whisper. The boy was too strong, too quick to defy. Too uncertain they had brought him in to fulfill a prophecy. But now, some wondered if they had merely armed a storm. The blade he carried was his own. It obeyed his will. But it could not answer the question that haunted him. What will you become? And in his dreams, the question began to change. What will they let you become? The crystal had chosen him, but it had not spoken its last word. For in the dark, the Sith waited, and the Force began to fracture. Chapter 4: The Wound of Attachment, where love touches the Force. The veil between salvation and destruction begins to tear. He saw her again, not in dreams, though she had haunted those too, but in flesh, in breath, in radiant silence. Padme Amidala, no longer queen, yet no less regal. The galaxy had aged since Naboo, but her presence remained unchanged. And Anakin, now nearly a man, felt the tide within him shift. She greeted him warmly. He tried to speak. His words stumbled. The Force, so steady in combat, trembled within him. For in her voice he felt peace, and in her presence, danger, attachment, the forbidden root of Jedi downfall, they said. A bond, too deep, too personal, one that could unravel years of training in a single moment of fear. But Anakin had already known loss, already held his mother as the only light in his young, enslaved life. And now, love came again, not as comfort, but as hunger. He fought it, he prayed it away. But love is not a shadow to be cast aside. It is the most radiant flame, and it burns. Padma was kind, strong, unafraid of him. She listened when others gave him silence. She believed in his light. He told himself it was just affection, a momentary echo, but he felt it when she smiled, in the way his chest constricted, in the way his voice softened around her name. The Jedi warned him, compassion, yes, possession, no. But Anakin did not understand how to separate the two, for he had never known freedom that did not cling. And now he clung. They grew close as the galaxy unraveled. The Clone Wars had begun. Republic against Separatist, brother against brother. The temple became a fortress. Jedi became soldiers. And love, in war, becomes necessity. He protected her. He fought for her. He saw her wounded once. Nothing fatal, but his fury had been absolute. An entire battalion of droids destroyed in moments. Not for justice, but because she had bled. He asked Obi-Wan once, "Is it so wrong to love?" And Obi-Wan answered, as a Jedi must, "It's dangerous to need someone so much." Anakin said nothing, but the wound inside him deepened. They married in secret. No council, no witnesses, only two droids, and the stars above, Naboo, as their ceiling. Their fingers touched. Their vows were whispered. And in that moment, Anakin felt something he had never felt fully, not even in the temple. He felt whole, but the Force did not celebrate. It shuddered, for this was no ordinary bond. This was a thread stretched across prophecy and war, across fire and sacrifice, and it would snap. He kept the marriage hidden. He lied to the council. He concealed the truth from Obi-Wan. Each deception fed a shadow inside him, not of evil, but of fear. Fear of losing her, fear of being cast out, fear of being left with nothing, and from that fear, dreams began. He saw Padman dying, in visions that grew more vivid, more violent. She screamed. He reached for her, but his hands were metal, and she faded into ash. Night after night, the same dot, and each morning. He awoke drenched in cold sweat, whispering her name into the silence. He consulted the archives. Nothing helped. He asked the council about visions. They warned him, the future is always in motion. He asked Yoda what to do if he feared the loss of someone he loved. The ancient master replied only, "Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose." But Anakin could not. He would not, for he had lost once, and it had carved him hollow. He would not lose again. Not her. The wound of attachment became an infection, silent, growing, and in the shadows of the Senate, a voice began to offer hope. The Chancellor, Palpatine, a man of power, of patience, who spoke of the dark side not as evil, but as necessary. He spoke of an ancient Sith legend, a dark lord who could keep the ones he loved from dying. Darth Plagueis. Anakin listened. He did not believe. Not yet, but the words rooted inside him. What if the Jedi could not save her? What if they forbade what might protect her? What if love, sacred, secret, burning, demanded more than the Jedi would allow? And so, in the name of love, the fall began. Not with betrayal, but with desperation. The Force stirred, and somewhere, deep within it, the chosen one's soul began to divide. Chapter 5. The Clone War murmurs the galaxy burned, and in its flame a Jedi was forged, not in serenity, but in sorrow. It began with whispers, a blockade, a dispute, a separatist movement. Then a blade was drawn, and the whispers became screams. War, not the kind sung by bards or echoed in marble chambers, but a grinding of stars and bodies. A war of clones created in secret, bred for obedience. And Jedi became generals, an ancient order of peacekeepers, now forced into steel and strategy. They led battalions, they gave orders, they walked upon battlefields soaked in the Force, not calm but violated. Anakin Skywalker, he did not struggle as others did. He thrived. His instincts were sharp, his leadership magnetic. The clones followed him not because he bore a rank, but because he fought beside them, bled with them, saw them as men, not property. They called him General Skywalker. Some even whispered another name, the hero with no fear, but fear was there. He simply buried it deeper than most, for every battlefield dulled the ache of his visions. Every victory postponed the questions he dared not face. He was no longer a boy of sand and dreams. He was a warrior now, but the saber in his hand burned hotter than before, and sometimes, when he swung it, he felt the dark side brush his skin like cold breath. He took a Padawan against the Council's expectations, a young Togruta named Ahsoka Tano. She was bold, impatient, clever. She reminded him of himself. He grew to care for her, guided her, protected her. She called him Sky Guy. He called her Snips. It was light, but light does not last. Ahsoka saw things the Council refused to see. She questioned. She doubted. And when she was framed for a bombing within the temple, they turned on her. Even Anakin, her own master, was powerless to protect her from their judgment. She was cast out, and though her name was cleared and they offered her return, she refused. She walked away from the order, and something within Anakin shattered. He had seen injustice before, but not here, not from them. He began to ask himself, what is the Jedi Order if it cannot protect its own? If it clings more to law than to truth? If they could betray Ahsoka, what would they do to him if they learned his truth? The war stretched on. He was assigned more and more critical missions. His power became legend. But his peace, what little remained, withered. Padam, now a senator, remained hidden from the war's eye. Their secret marriage survived in shadows, but the shadows grew cold. She worried for him. He could not show it. The visions returned her. Dying breath. His arms unable to hold her. Her tomb sealed in silence. He tried to suppress them, but fear is the dark side's door, and each time he denied it, the door opened wider. Palpatine remained close. The Chancellor had become a mentor, a confidant. He spoke not as a master to pupil, but as a father to a son. You are the most powerful Jedi I have ever seen. They fear your strength. They envy your destiny. Anakin listened. The Council grew distant, distracted by war. Palpatine offered clarity. He spoke of powers the Jedi refused to explore, of the ability to create or prevent death. And Anakin began to wonder, if the Jedi could not save Ahsoka, could they save Padmé? On the world of Umbara, he was ordered to obey a superior officer, a Jedi named Pong Krell, whose cruelty toward clones bordered on madness. Anakin was reassigned, and the clones under Krell suffered by the time the truth of Krell's betrayal emerged. Dozens were dead. Clones killing clones in the dark. A lesson was etched in Anakin's bones. Not all Jedi were just. Not all obedience was virtue. Sometimes righteousness required rebellion, and the seed of doubt grew deeper roots. The Clone Wars were not just a galactic tragedy, they were a crucible. They forged Darth Vader, not with one strike, but with 1,000 small wounds. Each betrayal, each order followed, each truth denied. Anakin Skywalker, the hero with no fear, became a man haunted by what he could not control. Love, loss, death, and in the distance, like thunder waiting to fall, the dark side watched. It did not tempt him with rage, it tempted him with hope. The hope that this time he would not fail to save the ones he loved. Chapter 6. The Shadow of the Chancellor. Not all darkness arrives with thunder. Some enters gently, with a smile, and waits. The Republic still stood, but hollow. Its systems in chaos, its Senate divided, its order strained to dust. And through this collapse, one voice remained calm. Chancellor Palpatine. To the public. He was a beacon of order. To the Jedi, a political ally turned quiet burden. But to Anakin Skywalker, he was something else, a mentor, a friend, a constant. They spoke often, in private, beyond council ears, in chambers veiled in red and shadow. Not as Jedi and politician, but as two men who understood power. "You're not like them," Palpatine would say. "They fear your strength. They do not see the full extent of your potential." Anakin, so long denied trust, drank these words like breath. They filled the void the Jedi left untouched. He began to confide in the Chancellor, his frustrations, his fears, his dreams of peace, and in return, Palpatine told him stories of Darth Plague, a Sith legend whispered in the ancient dark, a being so wise he could stop death, manipulate the Force to create life. But his apprentice betrayed him in sleep with silence. Anakin listened, not as myth, as possibility. Could this be how? He saves Palpatine never claimed the power, not directly, but the suggestion hung like incense in the air. It would not be found in the Jedi. They feared such knowledge. But in the shadows of the Force, there were truths they refused to. See, Anakin did not tell Obi-Wan or the Council. But each time he left Palpatine's presence, he felt less uncertain and more divided. The Council felt the shift. They did not name it, but they sensed it. Yoda, distant. Windu, stern. They summoned Anakin to chambers of silence. They asked him to do something unthinkable, to spy on the Chancellor. It was not a request, it was an order. Anakin resisted. "He is my friend. He is the Supreme Chancellor." But the Council insisted in the name of the Republic, in the name of peace. And so Anakin, once a slave, once a Jedi, was now a pawn. He returned to Palpatine carrying a secret mission. But the Chancellor saw through it. He always did. And this time, he dropped the mask. He spoke plainly. "I know the Jedi have asked you to betray me." And then he revealed the truth. He was the Sith Lord they had been hunting. Darth Sidious, the enemy hidden in the heart of the Republic. Anakin's blood ran cold. He reached for his saber, but paused. Palpatine did not threaten. He offered, "You seek the power to save your wife. You know the Jedi will not give it to you, but I will, I alone." The world stood still. Anakin left without striking. He ran to the Council, told them the truth. Mace Windu prepared to confront the Chancellor and forbade Anakin from joining. But the seed had already taken root. Anakin returned alone, to the office, to the silence. He watched as Windu tried to kill Palpatine, saw the saber raised. He saw a Jedi not in defense, but in execution, and in that instant, the line blurred. Jedi, Sith, peace, power, love, fear. He acted, his blade severed. Windu's hand, lightning followed. Death followed. Palpatine stood tall, eyes yellow, voice transformed. Now you are mine. Anakin fell to his knees. What have I done? He whispered, and the answer was not given in words, but in fate. You shall be known as Darth Vader. The temple would burn, the younglings would scream, the order would fall. But it began not with hatred, it began with a whisper. A promise. A fear. The Jedi never saw the darkness within the Chancellor, because he did not strike from the shadows. He waited in the light. Chapter 7. The betrayal of the light. The brightest lights cast the longest shadows, and when they fall, the galaxy forgets how to hope. The name Darth Vader was not spoken aloud that night. It was whispered into flame, into broken glass and trembling stars. The temple still stood, but not for long. Anakin returned to its sacred halls, not as a Jedi, but as something else. Not yet machine, not yet legend, but already lost. His footsteps echoed across marble, once touched by thousands of hopeful younglings. The walls did not recognize him. The statues turned away. His hood was drawn. His saber hung at his side, and in his eyes a storm of conflict and silence. They met him with trust. They called him Master Skywalker, and he ignited his blade, not out of cruelty, but conviction, not vengeance, but belief. He was saving her. He was ending war. He was creating peace. And if the price was blood, so be it. The younglings fell. One by one, the Force screamed, and still he moved forward. Across the stars, Order 66 was spoken, a command sealed in secrecy, triggered by a single voice, Palpatine, now unveiled as Emperor. With one phrase, he turned an army against its creators. The clones obeyed, not out of hate, but programming, and the Jedi, wise, mighty, unprepared, were slaughtered on Felucia, on Kashyyyk, on worlds the stars have long forgotten. Some ran, some begged, some fought, but most simply fell. The temple burned ash mixed with the wind, and Coruscant, for all its towers, did not mourn. It was over before the sun rose. The Republic was dead. The Jedi were dust. And in the throne of silence stood Palpatine. And beside him, the one who had once been Anakin, Obi-Wan, returned too late. He saw the corpses, felt the absence. He searched for his brother, and found only horror. Security footage, Anakin igniting his blade. Children crying. Silence. Obi-Wan did not weep, not yet. He went to Padme. She had already guessed. She had seen the shift. He's different, she said, her voice shaking. And then he told her. And something inside her broke. The child she carried moved. Twin lives, still hidden from fate, but the shadow had reached them too. She left to find him, still believing love could reach him. That light still lived somewhere in his soul. Obi-Wan hid within her ship. He too had a promise to fulfill. On Mustafar, the sky weeps fire. Lava rivers cut through black stone like veins of molten fury. It is here that Vader waits. The separatist leaders gather. He slaughters them without pause. No speeches, no cruelty, only silence. The war ends in flame. Padma arrives. She runs to him, she begs. He says he did this all for her, for their future, that together they can rule the galaxy. She recoils, not in hate, in heartbreak. You're breaking my heart, she whispers, and still he does not see. Still, he believes this is the only way. Obi-Wan appears. Anakin's fury ignites. He sees betrayal. He sees theft. He sees everything except the truth. You turned her against me. Obi-Wan pleads. You have done that yourself. But Anakin no longer hears. He draws his saber, and the Force holds its breath on that scorched world. Master and apprentice clash. A duel written in the stars. Blue blades flashing in smoke and sorrow. Brother against brother. It is not swift. It is not glorious. It is pain. They fight across steel and fire. Across broken walkways and memories. They scream. They cry. They burn, and at the end, it is Obi-Wan who stands high ground. Final chance, Anakin strikes and falls, screaming. His legs are severed, his arm gone. He slips into fire, crawling, burning. Obi-Wan does not finish him. He cannot. You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you. But there is no answer. Only flame, only hate, only the sound of a soul dying. Padma gives birth soon after to children. Luke, Leia, she holds them only briefly. Her body gives way, not to wounds, but to heartbreak. Her final breath is his name. Anakin, the prophecy collapses. The chosen one has fallen, and the galaxy falls with him. Chapter 8. The birth of the machine, the soul. Once bound in fire, now awakens in steel. And what wakes is not what was. The fires of Mustafar did not kill him. They should have. The molten banks had seared flesh from bone, turned hair to ash, eyes to ruin, lungs to smoke. He crawled through fire, howling his betrayal to the heavens. Obi-Wan's silhouette vanished into mist. Padma was gone, and still he clung to life, not by will, by hatred. It was not love that kept him breathing. It was rage that refused to let him die. The Force held him together, but not as Anakin. That name fell with his last breath on Mustafar's banks. What rose from the ash was something else. Palpatine found the remains. He did not weep. He did not flinch. He summoned droids. He brought the ruin aboard his ship, and beneath the sterile light of a secret medical chamber, he began the resurrection. Anakin Skywalker was broken, burned, mute, but not dead. Machines rebuilt him. They did not heal, they replaced. Synthetic limbs. A respirator fused to lungs. Too scorched to breathe. A voice box forged in mechanical despair. He did not sleep during the procedure. The pain was exquisite. Every nerve screamed. But he endured it in silence, because something deeper had gone numb. And then, the armor, black, cold, ancient in design, yet unlike anything the Jedi had ever seen. A suit not of protection, but prison. A sarcophagus for the soul. A voice that would echo down generations. A mask that would become myth. The helmet descended. It sealed with a hiss. And for the first time, he breathed. The sound echoed. Not air, but the death of what had once been human. He awoke on the slab, screaming. "Where is Padman?" Palpatine stood at his side. "It seems, in your anger, you killed her." The scream that followed did not come from lungs. It came from the Force itself. Windows shattered, metal walls buckled, and in that cry, The galaxy felt the final death of Anakin Skywalker, not by blade, but by truth. Darth Vader rose, not as a man, but as a wound. He did not weep, he did not eat, he did not sleep, he served. He became the right hand of the Emperor. He hunted survivors. Of the Jedi, he built the foundations of a reign of terror. Inquisitors were trained beneath his shadow. Stormtroopers marched behind his breath. Worlds fell under his gaze, and yet, in silence, he remembered a braid once cut, a hand once held, a name once whispered in a Naboo garden. The man within the mask did not die. He was buried, and sometimes, late in the cycle of galactic night, he would stand at the viewport of a star destroyer, watching the stars in silence and wonder. Was this what peace had cost? The suit was more than armor. It was pain. Each movement scraped memory. Each breath reminded him that he was no longer whole. But in pain, there was clarity. In silence, there was purpose. Palpatine had saved him, made him strong, gave him power the Jedi feared, and still, he could not save her. The power had come too late, and so, he wielded it not in love, but in vengeance. He hunted every whisper of Jedi, tracked them like ghosts, executed them without mercy. He cut down temples, crushed rebellions, strangled doubt in every chamber of command, and still her name echoed in his dreams, not as hope, as punishment. Pardium Akut, Anakin, Luke, Leia, names. He would not speak names, the galaxy would forget to the Empire. Darth Vader was the face of fear to the Force. He was the fractured, the chosen one, twisted into a shadow, and far across the stars, beneath the sands of a forgotten world, a child was growing. A boy, born of Podmum, hidden from Vader, hidden from destiny. But the Force had not forgotten it, was only waiting. Chapter 9. The scouring of the Jedi hope does not die in silence. It is hunted, burned, buried beneath centuries, yet never quite extinguished. The Jedi were gone, but not all. Some survived the purge. Wounded, scattered, lost in shadow, they became phantoms of what once was. They abandoned temples for caves, exchanged sabers for silence. They hid in the corners of the galaxy where the Force still whispered, though faintly, as if mourning, but the Empire would not let them fade. They were not allowed peace. Darth Vader ensured it. He did not rest. He did not hesitate. He hunted, from Coruscant's underworld to the tundras of Ilum, from the gas clouds of Bespin to the broken moons of Malachor. He followed every trail, every rumor, every flicker of the light. He was not seeking justice. He was seeking obliteration, not just of Jedi, but of what they represented, the memory of what he had been. He was not alone in his hunt. The Inquisitorius, a secret order of dark acolytes, former Jedi, twisted by pain and promise, tortured, remade. They called him Master. They feared him. More than death, under Vader's shadow, they stalked survivors, tested their power, crushed their resistance. But when the final stroke was required, he came himself. His presence was not swift, it was heavy. It preceded him like a storm. Lights flickered, air grew still. The Force coiled in dread, and then he would arrive, a towering shape in black, a breath that rattled bone, a blade of red, sunfire igniting without mercy. He said nothing. He remembered each name. Every survivor he struck down, he whispered their name in silence, not to honor them, to bury them. With every death, he believed he was purging weakness, paving the way for true order, but in truth, he was killing pieces of himself. On Deveron he found Master Hilera, once a healer, now hiding among farmers. She reached for her saber. He took her hand before it moved. She asked him, why? He answered with a blade through her chest. On Bolter, he faced two brothers, Jedi twins, raised in the archive's depths. They fought together. He killed them apart. On J4, a child of 12, barely trained, begged for mercy. He gave none. Each world darkened behind him. The Force, once a chorus of balance, grew hollow in places. As if crying out in grief, he felt none of it, or so he told himself. Yet not all Jedi were caught. Some escaped the purge. Yoda, hidden in the swamps of Dagobah. Obi-Wan, buried beneath. The twin sons of Tatooine, Ahsoka, walking her own path, no longer Jedi, yet still servant of light. They survived, not in resistance, but in purpose, protecting something deeper. Luke, Leia, twin sparks in the dark, unseen by the Empire, untouched by the Sith, the Force shielded them, not out of fear, but timing. A reckoning would come, but not yet. Years passed. Vader became a myth to the galaxy. He was the executioner to rebels, a nightmare to the Emperor, a tool feared and bound to himself. He was silence. He never spoke of her, never returned to Naboo, never asked of Obi-Wan, but in dreams he stood in fire, always in fire, and in the center of that fire stood a child, small, wide-eyed, calling. To him, not as a soldier, not as a Sith, but as a father. He would wake with fists clenched. The mask sealed the scream. The galaxy moved on. New systems bent the knee. The Empire expanded, but deep within that armored shell, something stirred. A fracture unhealed, a wound unclosed. The Jedi were gone, but their echo had not faded. And the Force never forgets. Chapter 10. The Son of Suns, when destiny hides in flesh, even the stars hold their breath. A child of light, born from ash, begins to awaken the broken Force. The boy grew beneath twin suns. Luke, a name simple, unremarkable to those who heard it, but to the Force it sang. Tatooine, the graveyard of moisture and memory, was no cradle for heroes. A world of dust, forgotten bones, and unmarked graves. But in its silence, life stirred. Obi-Wan watched from the hills, cloaked in shadow. He called himself Ben now, but the truth never left his eyes. He saw the boy as more than a child. He saw the hinge of prophecy. Luke Skywalker, son of Padmé, son of Anakin, son of Vader, and yet untouched. The darkness had not found him. The Empire did not know he lived. For now, Luke knew none of it. He dreamed of stars, of distant wars, of purpose. He fixed droids, herded vapor, chased mirages. He looked up each night, feeling something stir. Not knowledge, instinct, a restlessness in his blood, as if the galaxy whispered to him in a tongue he had not yet learned. He asked questions. His uncle offered only silence. His aunt smiled with sadness. They knew, but knowledge is poison when revealed too soon. So he lived, simple, small, a spark waiting for wind. Elsewhere, Leia Organa stood before Senate chambers with fire in her breath. A princess, yes, but more, a voice of rebellion veiled in diplomacy. She knew not her lineage, only that tyranny must be resisted. and that the galaxy deserved more than the Emperor's iron whisper. She, too, heard the echo, not through dreams, but in defiance, in justice to twins, split by fear, united by destiny. The Force reached for them both, for in them, balance could begin again. Vader knew none of this. The children had been hidden well. He scoured the galaxy. Without realizing, he was hunting his own blood. But fate is cruel. It does not stay still, and all things buried. Rise, the rebellion stirred, in shadows, a resistance born from whispers, from lost senators, from soldiers without worlds, and then a message, a transmission, a droid carrying secrets, plans, a name, Skywalker, not his, but another. The Force shivered. Vader felt it not as memory, but as disturbance, a presence he had not sensed in long time, a tremor in the dark. He pursued it, relentless, breathing like thunder, moving like fate. Obi-Wan felt it too. The past, at last, was stirring, and the hidden threads of prophecy began to tighten. Luke met the old man in the desert, the hermit Ben. The name meant little, but the eyes told stories Luke didn't yet understand. He gave him a saber, his father's saber, he said, the weapon of a Jedi. It called to Luke, not as tool, but memory. He felt something ignite within, not power, purpose. He asked about his father. Ben hesitated. He told him lies wrapped in gentleness, that he was a great Jedi, that he was betrayed and murdered by Darth Vader. A half-truth, but Luke accepted it because he was not ready for the whole. Stormtroopers came. The homestead burned. Owen, Beru. Ash. Luke stood in silence. The boy was gone. The hero began to awaken. He joined the rebellion, not to destroy empires, but to find himself. He met Leia, felt a strange familiarity, but names meant little in that moment. He met Han, a scoundrel, a survivor, and Chewbacca, the loyal warrior. The crew was formed. The journey began. The Death Star rose, a weapon of ultimate fear, and within it, Vader waited. He did not know the boy, not yet, but he felt something, as if the Force had begun to speak again after years of silence. A spark flickering at the edge of memory. He felt the past reaching for him. He did not understand, but he would, very soon. For in this son of the suns, the Force was waking, and the prophecy was not done. Chapter 11. Duel of the Forgotten. Two shadows meet again, not as master and apprentice, but as relics of a prophecy both tried to escape. The Death Star loomed like a godless moon, cold, massive, silent as extinction. It moved through the void, not as a ship, but as a verdict, and within its metal heart, destiny stirred. Darth Vader stood among stormtroopers and schematics, yet his mind was not here, not fully. Something had shifted, a presence, a scent in the Force, old, familiar, painful. Obi-Wan. The name passed through his respirator like a ghost through iron. He had not spoken it in years, but the wound remembered. He had left him burning, crippled, alone, yet the old Jedi still lived. The Force had brought him here, to this place, to this moment. It was not coincidence, it was reckoning. Obi-Wan moved like a shadow in the underbelly of the Death Star, not with fear, but with purpose. His beard now grey, his hands steady with the weight of what must be done. He sensed Anakin, not the child he trained, not the warrior he loved. The thing that walked now was something else, twisted, entombed, but beneath the metal. He still saw the boy. The desert had not hardened Obi-Wan, it had prepared him. He had watched over Luke for years, carrying guilt like a second cloak. Now he had returned, not to fight, but to let go. Their meeting was not sudden, it was silent. A corridor half-lit, stormtroopers peeled away, the air grew dense. Then, the sound, the breath, that breath, and from the smoke, Vader emerged. They did not speak immediately. The Force spoke for them. A tide of memory crashing behind steel and silence. Then, Vader's voice, low, mechanical, irreversible. "I've been waiting for you, Obi-Wan." Obi-Wan bowed his head slightly. "I know, you should not have come back. I had no choice." Vader ignited his blade, a crimson flood of death. Obi-Wan followed blue light blooming from an older saber, the same that had once defended a child on Mustafar. Their blades met with a hum that shook the air, not in fury, but in history. They fought slowly, each strike a memory. Vader's power was raw, brutal. Obi-Wan's was precise, patient. Red crashed against blue, not as war, but as mourning. The years fell away. A volcano, a betrayal, a brotherhood sundered. "You should not have left me there," Vader said, voice cold as space. "You chose that fate." Obi-Wan replied, "You let it in. I brought peace, freedom, justice. You brought ruin." The jewel spiraled through the hall, sparks flying from walls, reflections dancing in Vader's black mask. But Obi-Wan was not here to win. He was here to end his part. He saw Luke in the corner of his vision, the boy watching, frozen. It was time. Obi-Wan faltered, lowered his blade. Vader struck him down. The saber cut through nothing. No body, no cry, just robes falling into silence. The old master, gone, yet his presence did not fade. It shimmered through the Force. Luke cried out, but in that cry, the Force awakened, for Obi-Wan had not died. He had become something more. Vader stood still, looking down at the empty cloak. Nothing remained, no corpse, no weight, only absence. He had expected satisfaction, triumph, but there was only silence. Luke escaped, Leia escaped, the plans escaped, and in the quiet corridor of death, Darth Vader stood and felt something shift, a thread tightening. The child, the saber, the name Skywalker, a name buried, a name reborn. The past was not done with him, not yet. Chapter 12. The Empire hunts the spark, the fire has been lit. Now the darkness turns its gaze. What once slept begins to burn. Luke Skywalker escaped, fled the Death Star in grief, Obi-Wan's voice still ringing in his soul, not in sound, but in sensation. Run, live, become. He didn't understand it yet. He only knew this. Something greater had begun, and it would not stop. Not now, not with him. The rebellion stirred. The Death Star plans had reached their hands. Leia, strong and resolute, carried more than hope. She carried heritage, still hidden from herself, but not from the Force. Yavin 4, beneath its jungle canopy, became the crucible. The station approached. Time burned. The attack began. Luke flew, uncertain, untested. His hands gripped the controls. His heart gripped something far older. The Force whispered. He closed his eyes, fired, and death became salvation. The Death Star exploded in a flood of light. Vader spiraled away, not in defeat, but in warning. The child was real. The name was not a trick. Skywalker, it returned like thunder in his mind. He did not speak it, but the mask could not hide the breath that trembled. He returned to the Emperor Palpatine stood among stars and shadows. There is a great disturbance in the Force, the old voice rasped. I have felt it, Vader replied. Our new enemy is Skywalker. He did not react outwardly, but inside something cracked. That name means nothing, he lied. Palpatine studied him, yellow eyes flickering. He could destroy us, or he could be turned. The suggestion hung like poison. In air, can it be done? Palpatine asked. Vader paused. He will join us, or die, my master. But he did not say what he truly felt, that the boy reminded him of her, of hope, of things long buried. The Empire did not wait. It moved, relentless, vicious. It hunted every cell, every whisper of rebellion. TIE fighters cut through void. Probe droids scattered across systems. Fleet commanders crushed settlements with no names. The Empire hunted the spark, for it feared what spark becomes when given wind, and at its center Vader stood, not just as enforcer, but as seeker. He followed the Force now. It pulsed in strange places, a whisper here, a ripple there. He felt it in the frost of Hoth. The boy was near. He descended like death. The rebels scattered. Luke fled. Vader's fury lit the snow. With crimson, he did not care for the others. He wanted the boy not to kill, to claim. Dagobah. A. Swamp world forgotten by maps. Luke fell there, not by accident, but by design. The Force had called him, and in the mists a small shadow waited Yoda, the last of the Council, old now, but not broken. He watched the boy. Saw too much of his father in him, but also something else balance. He trained him in silence, taught him not how to strike, but how to feel. Luke struggled. He was reckless, impatient, and in a cave of twisted vision, he saw a helmet. He struck it, it split, and within the mask, his own face. He awoke, screaming. The Force was not giving him answers. It was giving him warnings. Vader felt him again, closer, more connected. The hunt was no longer political. It was personal. This boy, this Skywalker. He needed to see him, to speak to him, to offer him the truth, to pull him from the ashes of the Jedi before he was consumed by them, perhaps to save him, or perhaps to be saved by him. But such thoughts Vader buried. He was not a father. He was an extension of the Empire, of pain, of law. But still, when he closed his eyes, he did not see the Emperor. He saw Pam, and her final words echoed like a prophecy he dared not believe. There is still good in him. Chapter 13. Father of the Forgotten, the mask remembers nothing, but the man beneath remembers everything. And when the son looks into the father's shadow, the past begins to breathe again. Cloud City, a jewel suspended in Bespan's sky, where gas was mined and secrets sank in fog. It was here that paths converged, not by strategy, but by destiny. The trap was set. Han Solo, frozen in carbonite. Leia captured Chewbacca, chained and Vader, waiting not for the scoundrel, not for the princess, for the boy. Luke came, driven not by knowledge, but by feeling. Yoda had warned him. Obi-Wan's voice pleaded from the beyond, but he would not abandon his friends. He would not leave them to die. Not again, not like his father. Once did. And so, he entered the trap. But the trap was not built of iron, it was built of truth. The duel began. Vader met him in the carbonite chamber. Smoke rose. Light pulsed. He offered the boy one last chance. Luke refused. Their sabers clashed. Vader tested him not as prey, but as puzzle. He struck, waited, struck again, waited, measured the boy's pain, his anger, his fear. You have learned much, young one. You'll find I'm full of surprises. But Vader already knew. The boy was not ready. And still he felt pride. A twisted, hollow pride. The fight rose through the city's veins. Steel corridors, echoing bridges. Luke gave everything, but Vader was more. He beat the boy back, breaking defenses like old promises. And then the wound, the saber stroke, the scream, the hand severed. Luke fell to his knees, gasping, the saber lost. The duel over, but the battle had just begun. Vader did not kill him. He stood over the boy, not as an executioner, but as a father, though he did not say the word. You do not yet realize your importance, he said. You have only begun to discover your power. Luke stared up in defiance and fear. Join me, and I will complete your training. We can end this destructive conflict and bring order to the galaxy. Luke's breath caught. His grip trembled. There is no escape, Vader continued. Don't make me destroy you, as Obi-Wan once did to me, and then the fracture, the truth. I am your father. Silence, it shattered everything. The name, the lie, the legacy. Luke shook his head. No, that's not true. That's impossible. But the Force did not deny it. It trembled in agreement. Anakin's shadow stood above him, and in that moment, a Jedi died. A son was born, and the future changed shape. Luke fell, down the shaft, into the wind, into silence, not by Vader's hand, by his own. He chose the unknown, over the lie, over the truth, over the father. Vader stood on the platform, watching the void where the boy vanished. His breath echoed slower, lower. He did not pursue. He only stood, alone. He did not return to the Emperor with triumph. He returned with silence. Palpatine saw this, and smiled with hidden teeth. The boy resisted. Yes, Vader said no more. The Emperor said nothing, but the plan had begun. If he could be turned, Palpatine whispered in the dark, he would become a powerful ally. Vader said nothing. For the first time in years, his loyalty trembled not from rebellion, but from recognition. This boy, his boy, was not just powerful, he was good. And Vader, buried beneath metal and darkness, felt something ancient stirred, guilt, regret, a whisper of love so faint he dared not speak it, but he knew now the prophecy was not dead. It had only been delayed. Chapter 14. The Emperor's design, the dark does not wait. It molds, it whispers, and when it sees defiance rise, it prepares the blade to sever it. The Emperor sat atop a throne of shadow, far above Coruscant's towers. In chambers where time itself seemed to hold its breath, he watched the stars with eyes older than war. Darth Sidious, Chancellor no longer, Emperor eternal. The galaxy bent around his will. Armies moved at his whisper. Sectors died in his name. But none of that filled him. Not truly. Power was not enough. control was not enough. For Sidious, the Force itself was prey, and now it had stirred. It had chosen Skywalker again. Vader returned from Bespin, not as victor, but as question. He said little, moved slower. Something in him had changed. Sidious noticed, and in that change, he saw danger. The boy had ignited a memory, a fracture. The name Skywalker, spoken aloud again, had stirred Anakin's corpse, and corpses were not meant to move. So the Emperor began his design, not to destroy the boy, but to use him. He saw the youth's anger, his recklessness, his hunger for meaning. He saw in Luke the same fire he once saw in Anakin, but purer, unguarded, not yet chained by ideology, not yet fully Jedi, nor Sith, just potential, and potential to the Sith was raw clay. He spoke to Vader with careful malice, with ceremonial calm. He will come to you again. He seeks answers. He seeks you. He must not go to the Jedi. Vader, bound in silence, responded only with breath, but his thoughts ran wild. He had watched the boy leap into the void rather than join him, had felt the denial, yet in that denial was strength, and strength Vader respected. Palpatine's voice slithered again. If he can be turned, he will become more powerful than either of us. The choice was offered. Train the boy, twist him, break him, make him a Sith, and Vader. Vader agreed, outwardly, but beneath the iron mask, Anakin stirred, not in rebellion, in conflict. He wanted to see Luke again, to speak, not as master to apprentice, not as Sith to Jedi, but as father to son. He could not admit this, not to the Emperor, not even to himself. And so the trap was laid. A new Death Star, larger, deadlier, more symbolic than strategic. It would not be the true weapon Luke would be. He would come. They knew he would. The rebellion would see the station. They would strike, and in that strike, Luke would arrive. Not to destroy, but to face. Face his father, face the truth, face the Emperor. And in that throne room of night and lightning, he would fall. This was the Emperor's design, a duel of fate, a choice forced by fire. Palpatine would offer Luke what he offered Anakin: power, control, dominion over death, and when the boy struck in anger, he would be theirs. But fate does not obey its architects, and Luke Skywalker was not Anakin. He trained in secret, not fully, but enough. Yoda's voice echoed in him still, frail and fading. There is another, Yoda had said, with breath that drifted into silence. Luke did not understand then, but the seeds had been planted. Leia, his sister. The Force did not rest in one child alone. But Sidious did not know this, not yet. He saw only Luke, and so he waited in his throne above Ender's moon, like a spider at the center of an unseen web. The boy would come, and when he did, Palpatine would claim his final apprentice, or so he believed. Chapter 15. The son returns to the father. The boy carries no weapon that can pierce the mask, yet his presence alone begins to unmake what the fire could not destroy. The forest moon of Ender whispered through trees older than empires. Above it hung the skeleton of the new Death Star, still incomplete, yet already steeped in death. Luke came willingly, not in defiance, not in fear, but in surrender. He carried no army, no anger, only resolve. He wore black robes, but the dark had not claimed him. Not yet in his hands. He held no justice, only a question. He let himself be captured. He did not resist. The time for hiding was over. It was time to face the shadow. The stormtroopers delivered him in silence. He stood before Vader once more, the cold corridors of the Imperial shuttle echoing with history. Father and son, now only steps apart, but centuries seemed to stretch between them. Luke looked up. "I've accepted the truth," he said softly. "You were once Anakin Skywalker, my father." Vader's reply was mechanical, but hollow. "That name no longer has any meaning for me." Luke's eyes did not waver. "It is the name of your true self. You've only forgotten. You were once a Jedi like my father." There it was again. That word. Father. Vader turned away, as if the title itself was a wound. Obi-Wan had never called him that. Neither had Palpatine. Not even Padme had lived long enough to say it aloud. Only this boy, this stranger with his eyes, spoke it as if it still lived. Vader led him through the corridors, toward the throne. Luke walked beside him, not chained, not dragged, but with dignity. "Let me help you," he said. Vader said nothing, but the silence trembled. "I sense the conflict in you," Luke whispered. "Let go of your hate." Vader stopped. "There is no conflict," he lied. Luke stepped closer, then, "My father is truly dead." That word again, it lingered in the air like incense. Vader turned away once more, but for a moment his stride slowed, as if memory reached for him from beneath the mask. They arrived in the Emperor's throne room. Palpatine stood at the window, his hands folded, his smile a scar across shadow. He turned slowly. The boy bowed, not in respect, but in acknowledgement. Of the danger, Palpatine's voice slithered. "Welcome, young Skywalker." He circled him like a predator. "You no longer need those who lie to you. Your father, Obi-Wan, Yoda, all of them sought to hide your destiny." Luke did not flinch. "You will not turn me as you turned my father." Palpatine's laugh echoed across the chamber. "Oh no, my young Jedi. It is your compassion, your faith in your friends. That will be your undoing." He showed him the fleet, the trap, the inevitability of their destruction. And then he handed Luke the truth, the saber, his own. "Strike me down," he whispered. "Give in to your anger." Luke's hand trembled. The saber shook in his grip. Leaned closer. "Do it. Give in to your hate. Only then will you be powerful enough to save them." Vader stood silent, unmoving, a statue of metal, but the force within him boiled. Luke refused. He stepped back, the Emperor's face twisted, and then the final test. He raised his hands. Lightning poured from his fingers, writhing veins of pain, pure energy ripping into Luke's soul. The boy screamed. He fell. The lightning did not stop. Vader watched unmoved at first, but the scream, it echoed, not as a stranger's, but as a memory, a child, a wife, a past. Anakin. The name returned. The mask turned toward the Emperor, toward the suffering, toward the choice. Palpatine laughed. Vader stepped forward. Then a hand reached out. The Emperor's voice turned to shock. "What are you?" Vader lifted him. Lightning poured into the suit, the circuits, the flesh beneath. He did not scream. He simply walked and cast the Dark Lord into the abyss. Silence returned. Luke crawled to his father. The mask sparked. The breath faltered. Vader collapsed. Not in defeat, in release. "Help me take this mask off," he said. Luke hesitated. But you'll die. Vader's voice was soft now. Nothing can stop that now. He removed it. Beneath the mask was not a monster, not a Sith, just a man, a pale, scarred face, eyes once bright with stars, now dimming. Anakin, you were right, he whispered. You were right about me. Tell your sister you were right. And then he was gone. Not into darkness, but into peace. Chapter 16. Twilight of the Chosen. When the mask falls and the light fades, what remains is neither Sith nor Jedi, but the ghost of balance itself. The fire rose on Endor, not of war, but of farewell. Luke carried the body through the trees. Not the armor, not the saber, the man, Anakin. No longer Darth Vader, no longer the blade of the Empire, just a father. The pyre crackled, and the smoke drifted to the stars. It did not rise in mourning. It rose in cleansing. The chosen one was dead, and, yet, something had been born. The rebellion celebrated. The Empire fractured. The second Death Star had fallen. Palpatine was gone. The fleet rejoiced. Planets lit fires. Bells rang on worlds once silenced. Leia stood among her people, Han at her side. She felt a strange stillness, a tremor, not fear, but presence. She did not know the shape of it yet, but soon she would. She was not just royalty, she was Skywalker. The Force waited for her. Quietly Luke stood at the edge of the forest, away from the celebration. The fire behind him, now only embers, and then he felt it. Not wind, not shadow, but light. He turned, and they were there. 3 forms, faint and shimmering. OBI-1, Yoda, and beside them, Anakin. Not as Vader, but young, serene, free, his father. Their eyes met. No words were needed. The Force had said everything. Luke bowed his head, and for the first time in many years, Anakin Skywalker smiled across the galaxy. The Empire did not die quietly. It fractured, it clawed, it bled. The Loyalists retreated. Moffs seized control. Warlords rose in shadow. But the throne was empty. The chain had broken. The Sith were gone, for now, and yet, in places the Jedi once walked, something stirred. The Force was not at peace. It had shifted. It had survived, but it had not healed. The Chosen One's sacrifice was real. But prophecy is never final. Only a chapter. The balance had been restored, but only for a time. Darkness is patient, and light forgets. But the galaxy remembered him. Not the monster, not the tyrant. The man, Anakin Skywalker, the one who fell, the one who rose, the one who, in the end, chose love, not power, and by that choice, saved his son, saved himself, and for a moment, the stars themselves bowed. Chapter 17 echoes beyond the grave. The galaxy forgets quickly, but the Force does not. In places unseen, the past stirs, waiting to be remembered. The fire on Endor cooled to ash, but Luke Skywalker could still feel the warmth, not on his skin, but deep within the current of the Force. His father was gone, and yet he was everywhere. He heard whispers in leaves, in wind, in the spaces between stars. Not words, prescience, echoes. There were no Sith, no Jedi Council, no prophecies spoken aloud, only him. The Last Jedi, a title that weighed like iron. A title he had not asked for, and still, he carried it for the galaxy. Peace had returned, but Luke saw beyond the surface. He knew what the others did not. The darkness had not died. It had only been buried in hidden places. The Empire regrouped. Admirals fled into the unknown regions. Scientists clung to shattered labs. Loyal cults whispered Palpatine's name not as a leader, but as a god. There were rumors machines grown in vats, worlds gone dark overnight, names erased from HOLU records, but no one listened. The galaxy, eager for relief, closed its eyes. Luke did not. He wandered, not to fight, to understand. He sought old temples on forgotten moons. He meditated where Jedi had once bled. He walked the ruins of Malachor, of Assus, of Jedha. The Force showed him visions, not of the future, of the past, of Anakin, of a boy spinning in a of a young Jedi kneeling before the Council, of a man weeping on the volcanic sands of Mustafar, of a mask lowering for the first time, and beneath all of it, a question. Was it destiny or choice? Luke asked the holocrons, but they were silent. He reached for Yoda. For Obi-Wan, they did not answer. Even Anakin's voice had faded. The Force had gone still, as if waiting for him to decide. To build, or to end, he began to train. Not many, just one. A girl, small and bright, like a flicker in a dying storm. But that story was not yet ready. The galaxy worshipped. Symbols. Luke became one. He hated it. He was not legend. He was grief made flesh. He had seen the best and worst of his blood, had held his dying father in his arms, and felt the tremble of redemption. Too late to save a life, but just in time to save a soul. He would never forget it, the way Anakin had looked at him. Not with power, but peace. It haunted him, and it guided him. For if he could be saved, then perhaps no one was ever truly lost in the far reaches of the galaxy. Where maps ended and myth began, a whisper stirred. The Force was not done. The balance had shifted, but not settled, and deep in shadow, something ancient waited. Not Palpatine, not Vader, something older, something forgotten even by the Sith. The final chapters had not yet been written, and Luke Skywalker, child of Tatooine, son of prophecy, last of the Jedi, would soon discover. The dead never sleep, not in the Force. Chapter 18. The Force remembers, long after the battles fade, long after the war songs quiet, the Force remembers, and in memory, truth is born anew. Luke stood alone in a hollow temple, stone arches stretched into darkness above him. The ground beneath his boots was carved with languages lost to time. He had come seeking answers, but found only silence. Yet the Force was not silent. It watched, it listened, it remembered. The wind outside was still. No birds, no engines, no voices, just the slow inhale of a world forgotten. But deep in the bones of the temple, the echoes began. He closed his eyes, and the past came to him. Not in visions, in presence. He felt them, Yoda, Obi-Wan, Anakin. But different now. Distant, yet closer than breath. They did not speak in words. They flowed through his thoughts like water over stone. What was done was never undone. What was broken could never be made whole. But balance did not require perfection, only truth. Anakin's presence lingered longer. Luke felt the weight of it. Not Vader never again. That mask was gone, but the man who remained was both scarred and sacred. Anakin had not been the perfect Jedi. He had not been the ideal father. But in the end, he had chosen love over fear, compassion over control. It had cost him everything, and it had saved the galaxy. Luke wept, quietly, not for pain, not for loss, for understanding. The war had ended, but the legacy was only beginning, in the ruins of the galaxy. New powers stirred, remnants of the Empire hunted in shadow, but something darker loomed behind them. Not Sidious reborn, but the wound left behind. The galaxy feared emptiness. It feared the space Vader once occupied, and in that fear, darkness found its way back in. Luke knew this. He had seen the cycle. Jedi rise, Jedi fall, empires crumble, tyrants return. The Force had no end. But Luke, he was not here to end the story. He was here to rewrite it. He returned to the stars, not as warrior, as witness. He told the tale, not of victory, but of truth, that the Chosen One had failed, and then he had redeemed, that the Jedi had erred, and still they had endured, that the Force was not light, nor dark, it simply was, and in every being, in every shadow, in every sun it remembered, on a quiet world, far from the maps. He built stones into a circle, no temples, no thrones, just stones. He placed them for the fallen, for the forgotten, for the ones no history would honor. Qui-Gon, Ahsoka, Palm, and Anakin, a place of memory, a place where future Jedi might one day come, not to worship, but to understand. Luke Skywalker faded from the wars, but not from the Force. And as the galaxy turned again, with new heroes, new conflicts, new endings, the wind carried his name, not in fear, but in reverence. The Force had remembered, and so would they, for the story of Anakin Skywalker was not one of power. It was a story of love, of fall, of redemption, and in the quiet between stars, that truth would never die. *The End.